Stories of innovation and success from the vibrant communities of rural Nova Scotia. This is Ignited.
Hey there, welcome to Ignited the podcast, where we celebrate innovation and rural success. I'm Wade Cleveland. I work for a rural innovation hub called Ignite, a place that brings startups and industry, youth, and community together with the goal of making an impact on rural communities everywhere. Now, this episode is a fun one for me. If you're of a certain age, like I am, and living in Canada, then you probably were a fan of the band April Wine, led by our guest today, primary songwriter, singer, and guitar player Myles Goodwyn. April Wine had definitely been part of the soundtrack of the lives of those in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they have the accolades to show for it. From the Rock of Fame to the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, the Juno Lifetime Achievement Award, the East Coast Music Lifetime Achievement Award, and SOCAN's National Achievement Award. And this year, Myles was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. Now, Myles has retired from April Wine, so to speak anyway, giving his final performance with them in March of 2023. But he is by no means retired. He's still serving as a manager for April Wine. He's still writing material for them. He has a new solo album that's being put together now and lots of solo performances, albeit closer to home than ever before. He joins us by phone from his home outside of Halifax. All right, first off, Myles, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm going to start off with a congratulations. You were recently inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. That has to mean a lot to you.
Yeah, that was a biggie. Of all the awards I've been lucky enough to be given that with April Wine or on my own, this one is very, very special. First of all, because it's for me. It's not for April Wine. You know, it's great to be part of this great band, you know, and to write for them and everything else. But it's songwriters in a band aren't really recognized nearly as much as obviously a solo artist. So for them, you know, the first song I wrote was in high school. It was a hit for April Wine called "You Won't Dance with Me." Our very first album called April Wine, I wrote a song called "Fast Train," which was a hit for us. It's still getting played. And then every album since. So that was a long time ago. And I'm inducted in the Canadian Hall of Fame in 2023. That was a long time to wait. I'm still alive. I was able to go up there and accept that. And it was a wonderful, wonderful moment, especially having a lot of friends there. And Lenny Gallant, my good buddy, was there to induct me. And then people like Jimmy Rankin and others on stage performing some of my songs. Yeah, it was a great night.
Oh, it had to be. Now, may I ask, what's your process? And I know you've worked very hard at the craft. Do you approach it like, okay, today from 3 until 5 o'clock, I'm going to write? Or is it as the muse strikes you?
Yeah, as it strikes me. That other 9 to 5, that's Nashville. I've never been there. I like to write on my own almost always have. I've never fancied writing with other people. I've done a little bit in the past, and I'm actually working on with somebody else right now on a new idea. But it's an inspiration, first of all. You know, it could be some words or some music. But I play guitar every day, which helps my odds of finding something. And I write in the morning. I don't write. I play guitar every day, and I kind of put my coffee on and I wait till it's nice and ready and nice and hot and everything. And I spend that time, I'll spend 10, 15 minutes right out of bed. And I find that's when my head is very, very clear and ready to accept ideas. And that's where a lot of them come from, or that's where I finish them. You know, it's like, and of course I'll go off on my own in the middle of the day or at night and do it. But typically that's what I like. When I wrote Just Between You and Me, my memoir, I did all of my writing. I started writing for 5:30 in the morning because it was clear and quiet. There was no distractions, and I would write until about, I don't know, maybe 5:30 till 8, you know, something like that. And then I'd have a power nap and then get on with my day. I really like that early morning stuff where you're not disturbed by anything else.
That's fantastic. Now, I was going to mention the autobiography. I read it back in the day. It's been a little while now. And I was quite curious. I read somewhere during the course of just doing social media and reading all the different material that's around, that you were going to be revising that. Is that true? Are you kind of updating your autobiography?
Yeah, because it came out quite a while ago, and so much has happened since I wrote that book. And for example, COVID and how it's affected the music industry and me directly, and April Wine directly, things like that. And much more. Just a lot has happened. Retirement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted the fellow that helped me do the original one, Martin Malhewish, his name is, and he's great at finding facts. Like, April Wine played in Germany and this year with such and such a band, and he'll go research it. And he'll come back to me with all this information. Then we edit it down so it works in the book. What I did like about the memoir, it's not an autobiography, quite different. A memoir. In my memoir, I wanted to put some useful information there too. I thought it might. I mean, April Wine benefited from the TRC 30% Canadian content rule, and it came out, I think, in '69. I think it was.
Yep.
No. And some people don't like it. Brian Adams never cared for it, but then again, he came along later. But it was wonderful. It just kind of opened up the whole industry. All of a sudden, we had producers, we had more bands, we had record labels, we had recording studios, we had publishers. All of a sudden, it was the beginning, the seed for a star system in Canada would work. And I benefited from that. And April Wine did in those beginning days, and a lot of her readers are just fans, don't understand what that means. So we just kind of explain it, what it means, and so it's a useful read too. It's informative as well as it's about me, and wine. And yes, there's going to be an addition. So much has happened. I got a hold of Marty. I said, Marty, why don't we write some more? Let's update this whole thing up, bring it up to today, to my retirement and so forth. And he said that's a great idea. And so we're going to be doing that and have the new revised edition in the spring.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
You wrote a novel too, Elvis and Tiger. That's quite a thing to do. Like, what brought on the decision? I have an idea in my head, and I'm going to write a novel about it.
Well, the thing is, I like the writing process so much. But just between you and me, I got the bug, and I had this idea in mind for a book, and writing just between you and me was a difficult task. There were tough subjects on there, and so I had to take a break from it. My mother dying and how that affected the family, and other things, very serious things, and so I take a break from it. Then I'd miss the writing process, and so I said, I'm going to start doing this 5:30 in the morning, and I started writing a book about Elvis Presley and Tiger Woods.
It's such a quirky idea, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
I really like the book very, very, very much. And just between you and me, if I never read it again, I'm certainly okay with that. That's my past. But Elvis and Tiger, it was so much fun and so enjoyable. I know that there's a little, they call it blurb at the front of the book where people say nice things about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Or the author, and just between you and me, must have had close to 30 people, all kinds of musicians and other people saying wonderful things. But in this book, I had, and some did again, but in this case, on the front of the book is Great Big C, Alan Doyle.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun to write, and then Alan Doyle read the book and he gave me a blurb saying how much he enjoyed the book. It's a great book. Yeah, the idea that Elvis Presley wasn't dead. At the time this book was written, he was still alive, but he was in more or less incognito and hiding, if you will, down in Antigua. And he watched Tiger win the Masters Championship by a mile. He won by like 12 strokes or something. So here's a black man sweeping that, going in through the front doors of this hallowed facility, golf course. And I thought it was really interesting. And Elvis was so taken by it, he wanted to meet Tiger Woods and have 18 holes of golf. And that's what the book's about.
That's really fantastic. I love it. You seem to be having a pretty good time. I've been following you on social media, and I know, technically, quote unquote, you are retired, but you're not. You've been keeping yourself really, really busy. You play a lot close to home, but you've been playing quite a bit. Has it been fun? Is it fun again to be able to go out and, not doing national tours, just kind of staying close to home, but still getting to play?
Oh, it's great. It really is great. I get to sleep in my own bed almost always, and so I'm playing for friends. I get to meet new friends down here. I'm part of the whole musical community down here, and the fact that I don't have to fly and be gone for long periods of time, dealing with airports. That's the one area I'm so glad that in all of touring and playing with April One that I don't have to do that anymore. My experiences in Pearson just over the last few years, several years alone, it's kind of a modern day Bermuda Triangle. That place, what goes in there might not necessarily ever be seen again, and all the delays and cancellations. It's a crazy world right now. It's a very difficult world for folks with the cost of living and on and on and on. And I just stay at home now. I don't have to get on a plane. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to travel. I don't have to sleep in hotels, and which I did all of my adult life, literally. So I'm just having a ball here, playing with friends, keeping it local. It's awesome.
It's also been a lot of fun watching you interact with the East Coast music scene. I'm a huge fan of the East Coast music scene, and now you are one of those active parts of it. And watching you play with people like, and hang around with people like J.P. Cormier and Matt Minglewood, and East Coast music scene has been really heavy over the last couple of days with the death of one of the greats in my mind, Bruce Guthrow. And
Yeah.
I was wondering, you knew Bruce at least to a degree.
Yes.
That had to be a tough one.
Oh, it was a shocker. We all knew he was quite ill, and it was hard to be optimistic at the end. But everybody was still rooting for him, praying for him. And then I got the call very early the morning. Uh, I guess he died that night. I'm not sure the hour. But first thing in the morning, I got a message from Lenny Glant. Or no, it was Matt Minglewood telling me that Bruce had died that night. So night before. So yeah, that was, geez, yeah, I really miss him. And like I didn't know him as well as some, not like Matt,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was brutal. Him dying so young, just crazy. Just turned 62. The whole thing stinks. Bad things happen to great people. And Jimmy Buffett a little earlier
Hmm.
passed away, and he was very close friends with Gallant, with Lenny. They just recorded a couple of songs, sang together on Jimmy Buffett's latest recording, which I'm sure many people will get to hear.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been a tough several weeks. Yeah.
At Ignite, we have some amazing programming aimed at youth. Inspiring youth and exposing them to entrepreneurship and STEAM programming is one of Ignite's pillars. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math, and it's the key to igniting creativity, imagination, and innovation. From our $100 Entrepreneur Challenge summer camps, our Up and Atom Science and Sports summer camps, our Igniting Creativity in Arts and Music series of events, to game creation and more, we are helping to build future innovators in our rural communities. For more information and to sign up for our events newsletter, visit igniteatlantic.com.
Let's talk a little bit about the blues. It leads nicely into that. I love your blues albums, the two of
Thank
them, Myles Goodwyn and the Friends of the Blues. I was wondering if you have any more of the blues solo albums geared up and ready to go, or what's the plan for Myles Goodwyn as a solo artist?
Well, the blues thing is eminent, and I've almost finished writing it. And one of the things that's changed about writing for my, as a solo artist, with April One, you asked me about it earlier, is inspiration. I feel I have to be very, very inspired to do my best, to write the best that I can.
Hmm.
And so I won't take anything that comes along. I'm trying to make, every song great, as great as I can do it, great as I can do it. So it's very close to me going in the studio and doing the third one. It is going to be called "I Dream in Blue," and I've already written the title song "I Dream in Blue," and about two songs to finish before I have all that I need to do the next blues album.
Excellent. I can't wait. Also, you've been doing, as we mentioned, a lot of live performances. You're coming to Yarmouth in the next couple of weeks or so. What can fans expect at a performance? Is it do you play some of the blues stuff? Is it mostly the April Wine stuff? What's a Myles Goodwyn performance like?
Well, it's mostly April Wine. I mean, I wrote the April Wine stuff on acoustic guitar.
Hmm.
Because in the early days I was in an apartment or sharing a house with other people, and then I had a young family, at the time, and so I'd wrap myself around acoustic guitar and write songs like "I Like to Rock" and "Tonight's the One Night to Fall in Love" or anything, all of those songs, just between you, all acoustic guitar, and then I would take that version into the studio with the band and record it, but with a band, rock, April Wine style, and that worked very, very well. I didn't bother anybody while I was working too much, and so I still do that. I still do that. I like to write on acoustic guitar, knowing what it's going to sound like when I plug into a Marshall in a Les Paul. So in our live performance, it's all acoustic, so you get to hear the songs as they sounded when they were first written, pretty much. And there's a lot of stories. There's some stories, backstories, and anecdotes and stuff, and explaining the recording process or certain things that make sense. And I do a couple from the blues. I do early influences, not April Wine, but a few early country, Hank Snow song, and things like that. And yeah, it's all of these things, and a lot of laughs. People have a very, very good time. I love when people are to make people laugh. I think all of us artists do. We like to have that. We're not comedians, but we can be funny, and and some are better. Gunning is hilarious, and JP can be quite funny, and on and on. It's more folky than I ever thought I wanted to do. I've got this in my mind. I've got this thing about folk singers where they tune for 15 minutes and then sing a 4-minute song, and they're talking the whole time, and then they finally get around to the song. And April Wine is you don't talk, you play, and everything segues. Everybody's got it's all staged and in such a way that it makes sense, and you don't want to stop the flow of things in a 2-hour show with lengthy conversations and stuff. It doesn't work in rock like it does in folk and other genres, if you will. That's what that's what they're going to get, and it's a really good group. It's Jim Henman's been We've been friends since 1963, growing up in Waverly. We've written together, we recorded. He was the founding member of April Wine. He's the guy that came to me and said, "You want to form a band?" And it became April Wine in 1969. And we've been performing together. We've been friends since '63. So he's going to be there playing acoustic guitar and singing. And John Chasson on bass,
Yep.
vocals, and Steve Gates, a wonderful drummer who grew up a local boy. And they've all of these guys. Well, John and Steve have played with so many bands, so many recordings. It's a list of who's who down here in the Maritimes over all the years. So they're really good musicians, and it's a good show. It's a good show. It really is. People love it.
For the younger musicians who may be out there, and I know it's a completely different world, but for younger musicians who are looking to develop their craft, do you have any kind of tips or suggestions? What kind of problems are they going to run into? Probably all of them.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it takes an awful lot of luck. I don't really understand the way things are today enough to give advice to anybody, but I can give advice, the same advice I've been giving for decades to new songwriters that want to know, to hear what I have to say about the process. And I say this, I've said the same thing, and that is work hard.
Hmm.
That's it. I mean, really, that's true. Is work harder than everybody else. In April Wine, everybody else was sleeping and I wasn't. I was trying to write the next hit. All I did was work, 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 work. I was a workaholic. I produced them, I wrote them, the music, the lyrics, I mean, everything. And so I worked a lot harder, for April Wine than anybody ever did. And I think that's why we were successful in part, in a great part, not aside from the fact that, we were a great band. We sounded great. And I couldn't have done as much or nearly as much without the people that I've worked with in April Wine. But, it takes work. It takes hard. Yeah, we have to work hard. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. just find out where you want to go and just go for it and just stay focused and work super hard. Give it 100% at least if you want to be successful, and then hope for the best.
Absolutely.
Not everybody gets to make it. I mean, clearly and obviously, that's why I wrote a song once called "Rock and Roll is a Vicious Game." It wasn't about me. It was about, well, I referenced, Elvis Presley and what happened to him. The people that succumbed to the lifestyle of Janis and Jimmy and so forth. Uh, but it was also about young people that loved music and wanted to be a musician or a singer, and they had talent, and they gave it everything they could, and it didn't work for them.
Hmm.
It didn't happen for one reason or another. But even if they didn't have a lot of talent, just there was such a love for music and such a desire to express themselves through music that just didn't happen for them. And that's what the heart of the song was all about. Rock and roll is a vicious game is the title I used, and it's a well-known song, but that's what it dealt with.
Can we touch a little bit on some of the charitable work you've done? Because you've done a lot. Now, you're diabetic, like me. I'm diabetic, and you've done a lot of work with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation over the years, and really, that's quite a thing.
Oh, I still do that. Whenever I play with my quartet right now, we're four right now, and Long Pants, my solo record that came out last year, has a song on it that deals with that I wrote for my son when he was diagnosed with diabetes. He just turned 7 years old. It's called "Over the Moon," and it's very positive. And I performed it at JDRF functions and so forth. And so anyway, what I do every time I play is I bring a bunch of the CDs, a bunch of Long Pants CDs, and I tell everybody they're free for $1 or more. And that for every penny that we collect every night, every cent goes to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. My son, of course, is still diabetic type 1. I'm diabetic now and have been since '07. It runs in my family. I got brothers and so forth. It just unfortunately in our genes.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been doing that with April Wine for years. I had a different approach, so I didn't give things away for free, but we collected donations at April Wines just for years. And now that I'm on my own, I do it this way. And we collect a lot of money for JDRF, and every bit of it goes to research in hopes that it's going to help kids in the future and kids now that are living long enough to maybe not have the problem anymore, um, because there'll be kind of a solution, maybe pancreas replacements or whatever. So yeah, it's what I'll do. I'll do it as long as I possibly can. I did want to add one other thing when you talk about charities. I have a charity called Soulful Caring. One word, COLECARING, Soulful Caring, and I collect and distribute gently used shoes for homeless people.
Hmm.
I started this with a doctor up in Montreal who's diabetic like me, and there are a lot of diabetics out on the street too,
Yeah.
and a lot of people that are homeless. It's more and more because of the cost of housing and the lack of housing available. And I've been doing that for a long time. I took a break from it because things happened before COVID. Anyway, things have changed a bit. I did it for years. Matter of fact, the very first event we had was right here in Halifax. I said I want to have the first one on my back door, and that was at Value Village in Halifax. And there was a lot of coverage for that, and gave it a good kick. And I collect not clothing or anything, but footwear. And we're coming up to the winter months. People die outside every year because of exposure to the cold and everything. And my doctor friend Stan Van Dyce, he said to me when I decided to do this, he said the most vulnerable part of our bodies when during these winter conditions is our feet.
Hmm.
We have to keep our feet warm, and we have to protect our feet. And of course, if you're a diabetic, all you have to do is, cut your foot. You could lose a leg, and then with 3 to 5 years after that, you're dead.
Yep.
And so I want to have a campaign again in November. I'm not going to talk about the date right now, and I have some very cool people that are going to join me on stage. We'll make some music, and we'll collect some money and shoes for the homeless for this winter here in the area in Nova Scotia. So that's the other charity that's really important to me.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for that, Myles. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the time you took. It's been a blast to be able to talk to you. You can follow Myles on social media. He's pretty active on Facebook. He also has a website, mylesgoodwyn.com. And if you're on the East Coast, catch a performance from Myles. It's a fun show. To find out more about rural innovation and what Ignite does, check out igniteatlantic.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you subscribed to Ignited, shared us with your friends, and gave us a good review. You can find past episodes of Ignited in our archive. And we'd love to hear from you. Any comments or suggestions about the podcast or who you'd like to hear on it are most welcome. Our website, again, is igniteatlantic.com. My email is wade@igniteatlantic.com. Drop me a note. I'm Wade Cleveland. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.